Hi, today is Tuesday, March 31st, 2026. This article is from Popular Science, and I am trying to read this article to practice English because I am a Korean. I work for Korea Telecom KT, the number one carrier in Korea. And today we will have another CEO who will lead us into the next phase of our business. His name is Park Yun-young, and I'm sure that he and I will get along and we will make it happen. I wish to be assigned overseas so that I could oversee our KT business and develop a much good relationship with other nations, other foreign customers, and establish KT as a nice company, providing hopes and convenience and security to all the people concerned, right? So to do that, let's learn English by reading this article. This article is from Popular Science, popsci.com, and the title today is Drinking Alcohol Ever Good for You? Here's what the science says. If you're confused, you are not alone. I used to drink a lot. I mean, just like I used to drink like one bottle of beer per week. No soju, right? Sometimes one shot of whiskey per week. Currently, I drink like one whiskey per month or 2 months. Basically, I am sober, right? So sometimes I am attracted to nice liquor, like a Hansan Sogokju or a nice Scotch whiskey or a beer sometimes when it's hot outside. So let's learn whether it's good to consume alcohol or not. This article was prepared by Lauren Laffer, published January 13th, 2025. Get the Popular Science daily newsletter by entering your email and click or tap on sign up. It's a new year, which means it's time to take stock of old habits. That's good expression, cliche. It's time to take stock of old habits. For many, that means resolutions to get healthier and a month-long break from booze in observation of dry January. That's good expression, this one, right? A month-long break. A month-long break from booze in observation of dry January. A month-long break from booze in observation of dry January. Yet, as 2025 begins, what hasn't changed is the modeled messaging of the health effects of moderate drinking, right? Severe drinking and moderate drinking. Two recently released federal documents offer contrasting perspectives on alcohol and health, underscoring a long-standing, ongoing scientific debate that's reverberated through some of the most prestigious scientific journals and institutions. Moderate drinking. A review published in December by the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine toes what some see as an outdated line, suggesting that up to a drink or two a day is associated with health benefits like reduced risks of heart disease and death. The National Academy's analysis will likely inform revised national dietary guidelines set to come out later this year. Currently, U.S. guidelines state that alcohol consumption should be limited to one standard drink a day for women and up to 2 drinks a day for men. So different guidelines for sexuality, right? If you're a woman, 1 shot. If you're a man, 2 shots. This is also considered the upper limit on moderate consumption by many U.S. researchers and agencies. Then, on January 3rd, the Office of the U.S. Surgeon General released an official advisory unequivocally stating that drinking alcohol at levels as low as 1 drink per day can cause certain cancers. The advisory calls for updating the existing health warning labels on alcoholic beverages to include a warning about the cancer risks. So what gives? So what gives? So what is going on, right? What's happening, right? How can any substance be simultaneously associated with reduced risk of death and also increased cancer risk? How can big studies in well-regarded journals disagree on something as basic as a harm or benefit? Why is the U.S. government seemingly arguing with itself? Is any amount of alcohol healthy? Answers to all of the above are complicated. There's statistical biases and confounding factors that muddy the data, the financial interests and outside influence, and a lack of consensus on how to define terms such as risk and moderate, right? Muddy the data, right? Statistical biases muddy the data. Researchers sometimes disagree with each other about how to interpret the available evidence and what guidance is best for boosting health. But there are some things we know for sure. Here's what's clear and what remains murky when it comes to alcohol and health. Consensus straight up. Popular Science spoke with 6 expert sources for this article, including some who endorsed the idea that moderate drinking may be associated with health benefits and those who say that drinking at least at every level carries only health risks. Every single source agreed that alcohol consumption exceeding 1 standard drink a day for women and 2 drinks a day for men can have negative health consequences, and that drinking beyond that level brings significantly increased risks of accidental injury and death, certain cancers, heart problems, liver disease, cognitive impairments, and more. Internationally, the definition of a standard drink varies, but in the US and Canada, it's defined as 0.6 fluid ounces or about 14 grams of pure alcohol, which is equivalent to 12 ounces of 5% beer or 5 ounces of 12% wine, while 1.5 ounces of 40% distilled spirit. All sources agree that binge drinking, heavy drinking, and alcohol use disorder are serious public health problems, and some directly endorsing starting or increasing alcohol consumption by one health reason. I wouldn't want to recommend drinking, especially to someone who isn't otherwise going to drink, says Gregory Marcus, a cardiologist and professor of medicine at the University of California, San Francisco. Even if there are protective effects, which I acknowledge is possible, I don't think that the level of evidence is high enough to recommend initiating it, he adds. That's despite his own ongoing research trying to tease out potential heart health benefits of moderate drinking and his perspective that light drinking may have salutary effects that are biologically plausible. Further, it's firmly established that alcohol is an addictive substance with systemic effects in the body that can lead to psychological dependence. Use at low levels carries the risk of increasing and excessive consumption. Upwards of 20% of Americans who drink will experience an alcohol use disorder in their lifetime, according to data from the National Epidemiologic Survey on Alcohol and Related Conditions. There's no debate when it comes to the harms of excessive alcohol consumption. Instead, the ongoing scientific discussion is about how to relatively low alcohol consumption and how to communicate to the public about those effects. Increasingly, there's also burgeoning scientific argument that the risk relationship for alcohol and certain cancers is straightforward. Every additional volume of alcohol consumed is associated with increased risk of cancer. Right. Alcohol is a carcinogen, right? And that link is very well established, says Adam Shirk, a senior scientist at the Canadian Centre on Substance Use and Addiction, an NGO founded and overseen by the Canadian government. Different analyses disagree about what level of alcohol consumption poses what level of risk for what cancers. But even the new National Academy's report, which critics say is conservative in its assessment of health harms, found a 10% increase in breast cancer risk among moderate drinkers compared with those who reported. According to the National Cancer Institute, NCI, there is a robust evidence linking moderate drinking with increased risk of head and neck, esophageal, colorectal, and breast cancers. Light drinking, variably defined but loosely few standard drinks a week and less than a drink a day, is associated with measurable increased risk of esophageal and breast cancers per NCI. Wow, really? Variably defined but loosely a few standard, that's good expression too. There's a robust evidence, right? There's a robust evidence. National Academy's report, which critics say is conservative in its assessment of health harms, found a 10% increase in breast cancer risk among moderate drinkers compared with those who reported never drinking alcohol. Finally, sources generally agree that when it comes to assessing the cumulative health effects of occasional or light drinking, whatever benefits or harms may exist are modest. It's entirely possible that light or moderate alcohol consumption has no meaningful health impact for many people, according to Marcus. These are not major large effects, he says. Finally, sources generally agree that when it comes to assessing the cumulative health effects of occasional or light drinking, whatever benefits or harms may exist are modest. It's entirely possible that light or moderate alcohol consumption has no meaningful health impact for many people, according to Marcus. They are not major, large effects, he says. Tim Stockwell, a psychologist and professor at the University of Victoria in British Columbia, also views the effects of low-level drinking as small. Stockwell studies the measurement of and the prevention of alcohol-related harms and stations himself squarely in the camp of researchers who believe no level of alcohol consumption is without risk. Despite his firm stance that evidence indicates drinking in any volume is not bad for health averaged over a population, he explains each drink is likely equivalent to only a few minutes of lost life. If you consistently have 6 drinks a day, it's probably about 2 or 3 months of lost life expectancy. He adds, at something like 2 drinks per week, it's a very small risk, Stockwell says. Here, he stations himself squarely in the camp of researchers, right? What things gets fuzzy, yet a small risk is a very different thing from a small benefit at the public health level, and that's where the consensus breaks down. Despite the fact that individual effects of low and moderate drinking may be small, Stockwell notes that they can add up across the population. We shouldn't just focus on the high end of the spectrum, he says. Unfortunately, the broader view remains confusing. Beginning in the 1990s, reports about the purported health benefits of red wine began to lend moderate drinking a health halo, wherein the prevailing assumption among the drinking public became that a small amount of alcohol is good for you, especially for the heart. Among the drinking public, subsequent studies of alcohol consumption and all-cause mortality found what's known as a J-shaped curve. Those who drank some had a lower risk of dying than those who reported entirely abstaining. Really? Meanwhile, heavy drinkers' mortality risk was far higher than both groups. Mortality risk was far higher. This furthered the idea that a little bit of alcohol every day is healthy, despite the harms of overconsumption. But in ensuing decades, research into all-cause mortality and other health metrics has yielded inconsistent results. For instance, a 2017 study found that even moderate drinking is associated with brain volume loss. Some reviews, like a meta-analysis co-authored by Stockwell in 2023, conclude that low-level drinking offers no protective effect. In 2022, the World Health Organization surveyed the available research and concluded no level of alcohol consumption is safe for our health. Whereas there are other assessments like the recent National Academy's meta-analysis continues to report measurable benefits associated with alcohol consumption at low and moderate levels. In one particularly complicating instance, The Lancet, among the highest impact and most esteemed medical journals, published a 2018 analysis on alcohol's global burden of disease, reporting no J-shaped curve and no health benefit of drinking. 2 years later, the same research group published a revision stating that the data does, in fact, support a reduction in cardiovascular risk and all-cause death associated with small amounts of alcohol consumption among certain age groups. Again, it's worth noting that all of these review studies combine research that defines moderate and low levels of drinking in different ways. In the National Academy's study, a few of the studies used to inform the all-cause mortality all-cause mortality finding set the upper threshold for moderate drinking at 0.7 U.S. standard drinks per day. Only one set an upper limit on moderate drinking as high as how it's defined by existing U.S. dietary guidelines. That means that the reported findings on all-cause mortality related to moderate drinking don't necessarily apply evenly to all amounts of alcohol consumption between 0 and 2 drinks a day. Regardless, the basic idea is that even if alcohol increases cancer or other health risks, a low or moderate levels somewhere between 0 and 1-2 drinks per day, it may simultaneously reduce cardiovascular risk. And in the U.S., where heart disease is the biggest killer, that could seem a worthwhile trade-off. Proposed mechanisms for alcohol's cardiovascular health boost include that it might increase the amount of body's good HDL cholesterol, inhibit clotting, or help moderate blood sugar levels, though it's hard to disentangle the effects of alcohol itself from the other compounds present in beverages like red wine. Some also suggest that the social aspect of alcohol may mean those who engage in moderate drinking have richer social lives and are less lonely. Social interaction is a positive thing, says Ned Colonge, a physician, professor of epidemiology, and an associate dean in the School of Public Health at Colorado University. Colonge chaired the consensus committee that wrote the National Academy's report. Perhaps he suggests there are things associated with moderate drinking that have nothing to do with alcohol, which could account for some of the observed heart and lifespan benefits. The key thing to know here is that nearly all studies of alcohol in humans are observational, meaning they look for correlations among large research cohorts who self-report habits. These aren't randomized control studies, which serve as the gold standard for understanding the effects of pharmaceuticals. Instead, observational studies can only really demonstrate associations, not causal relationships. Drinking habits are complex and heavily influenced by non-random factors. Observational research can easily be inadvertently biased. Wow, that's a long story, man. Very long story. Wow, I'll just stop here, but let's go to the author. Lauren Leffer, contributor. Lauren Leffer is a science, tech, and environmental reporter based in Brooklyn, New York. She writes on many subjects, including artificial intelligence, climate, and weird biology, because she is curious to a fault. When she is not writing, she is hopefully hiking, right? Because she is curious to a fault. Wow, that's a good expression. I didn't know the meaning. Curious to a fault. What does it mean, right? Curious to a fault. Fault is the crevice. So yet even official guidelines can't capture the nuance and individual factors that might shift the outcomes of drinking for any one person at any one time. If perhaps you know you are at high risk of developing cancer, then cutting out alcohol entirely might make sense. If, on the other hand, you are more worried about a heart attack, then maybe that's not a reason to become a teetotaler, right? Teetotaler. Teetotaler. I forgot the word. Teetotaler, said Marcus. Let's look up the word later. If you believe in both the positive and negative effects, you should try to look at the reasonable risks you are willing to take, says Ram. Whether or not to drink is a personal choice, and sometimes science has limits. Yeah, teetotal, we say a teetotal, right? Curious to a fault. Curious to a fault describes a person who is so extremely curious that it becomes a weakness or a disadvantage. Oh, here, fault is like my mistake, my bad. Right? Curious to a fault. It's an idiomatic expression that indicates an excessive or disproportionate amount of a positive trait, curiosity, often leading to situations where the person is perceived as a noisy, intrusive, or overly preoccupied. Too much of good thing. While curiosity is generally considered positive, to a fault implies it has crossed the line from productive to a counterproductive or annoying. Curious to a fault. Curious to a fault. I'm curious to a fault. New expression. Teetotaler. Teetotalism is the practice of voluntarily abstaining from the consumption of alcohol. A person who practices and positively advocates teetotalism is known as a teetotaler or teetotaler, American English, and is said to be teetotal. Oh, I didn't know that. One who practices or advocates teetotalism. Teetotaler, I think.
Teetotaler.
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 Teetotaler. Teetotaler. A person who abstains from alcohol might choose tea as his or her alternative beverage, but the word teetotaler has nothing to do with the tea. Okay, teetotaler. More likely, the T that begins the word teetotal is a reduplication of the letter T that begins totaler, teetotaler, emphasizing that one has pledged total abstinence, teetotaler. In early 1980, teetotaler and teetotaler were used to intensify total and teetotaler. Much the way we know now might say, I am tired with a capital T. I am now wholly, solely, and teetotally absorbed in Wayne's business, wrote the folklorist Parson Weems in the 1807 letter. Teetotal and teetotaler first appeared with their current meanings in 1934, 80 years after the formation of the American Temperance Society. Teetotaler, right? Curious to a fault, teetotaler. Variously defined but loosely, moderate drinking, teetotaler, right? Teetotaler. Let's go back and see teetotaler. She's curious to a fault, stations himself squarely in the camp of researchers. There is robust evidence, variably defined but loosely per NCI. So what gives? Statistical biases muddy the data. A month-long break from booze. Observation of dry January. A month-long break from booze. Moderate drinking. It's time to take stock of old habits.